Hi, welcome, and thank you for continuing on this journey of discovery and hopefully of insight. However historians ultimately evaluate, analyze, and characterize this time, we know that it is an unusual time, a unique time, a time of upheaval, of surprise, of change, transition, regression in some ways, and progression in others. It may be the ubiquitous presence of social media and the news media, but I have the perception that it is unusual to feel events in the public sector so personally in our private lives. I would venture to say that it has not been since World War II that so many have felt such an intimate connection with everyday's news and the unknown fate of the world. I could be very wrong about that, but it seems that could be. In the midst of the uncertainty and upheaval of our time, I know that I am grateful for this safe haven of nurturing our beleaguered souls and spirits. So let us begin by doing just that. Let us release ourselves from whatever claimed us just before we tuned in, whether that was work or family or volunteering or housework or errands or cooking or any of hundreds of possibilities. So let us take our best meditative postures, most likely firmly seated in a chair. You could be seated on the floor. You could be lying on the floor. You could be standing. My guess is that most of us feel most comfortable sitting, feet planted firmly on the ground, with our spines uplifted, but not tense, with an attitude of reaching, but again, not straining. And let us be attentive as well as somewhat relaxed, or at least relaxed from whatever else we might have been doing, with our hands in our laps, and we may choose to close our eyes or to softly gaze on something indeterminate in front of us. And let us pursue that relaxation mode. And I always like to start within, at the tops of our heads. Well, I imagine it from within, but you may imagine it from without, which is perfectly fine. You may use totally different images than I do. But I do think about the top of my head, and then I move to my forehead, and I might even, with my hand, try to smooth out the creases in that forehead, the furrowedness of it. Let us relax our eyes behind our eyelids, our ears, our jaws. We might allow them just to hang open, slack, not smiling, not speaking, not frowning. Excuse me. And while we're at it, we could imagine our tongues just laying uninvolved in the bottoms of our mouths. It might be interesting to let our heads bob a bit, almost like one of those dolls. You kind of gently press the top of it and it goes. But not quickly, just a slow kind of bobbing, which leads us to our necks, and the rotation we might do with them. Welcoming every creak. Our shoulders. We can hunch them up to our ears and allow them to fall. Our arms, our elbows, our forearms, our wrists. We can just shake them out. Just kind of shake them out. And if we're shaking out our wrists, we shake out our hands and let them just go wherever they might until we return them to our laps. And we think about the internal organs, our breath going into our lungs, and from there into our diaphragm, our tummies. And let us just think about allowing the breath to come in so that all the organs are soft and pliable and untensed. We move through our waists and our hips and our legs, top, the thighs, the knees, the calves, the ankles, our feet. Our feet take a lot of abuse. I'm convinced of it. And they deal with us all day long, obviously. So let's give them a little break and wiggle the toes and imagine that our feet are luxuriating in a bath, in the sand, in the water. And in a state of release, let us inhale and feel those now pliable spaces filling with that air. Let us be sure to feel it physically, where it goes, how it feels. Even to notice how this first breath is different from all the other breaths we took today. We might even offer a thank you breath for filling my body. Thank you, breath, for being there. Thank you, body, for working in a way that welcomes the breath and fills up with it. And when we have inhaled to every relaxed corner, we can let it go. Which is another kind of freedom, a way to let it out. And to rest at the bottom of that exhale until we take another in. And let's just stay with it, thinking about it, just the breath. How does it feel? Where does it go? What does it do? How might I be without it? Oh, what a terrible question. But without the awareness of it, we are in a different state. So let us stay aware. And stay with the exhale in the same way that we stay with the inhale. And as extraneous thoughts intrude, as they will, let us just let them go and return to the attention, return to paying attention, to focusing our attention on our breathing. I had an experience this week that highlighted for me the vast difference between theory and reality, and the equally vast difference between our perceptions of ourselves and that reality. Just the other night, the power went out in my building. A few hours before the actual blackout, the power had gone off for just a few seconds, so that when it went off completely while I was in the shower, it was not as frightening as it might have been. Nevertheless, I very carefully finished my shower as quickly as I could, and then, grateful for a bit of light from the outside, as it was quickly fading, it was nighttime, I was able to gather some candles and my flashlights before it became completely dark in my apartment. This is not the first time I have been without power, and I expect that all of us have had that experience. And in the end, it was only for about 2.5 hours. But I didn't like it. I was very aware of not liking it, and I didn't like how much I didn't like it. It made me feel petty and ungrateful and spoiled. I kept thinking about the victims of so many natural disasters in our country alone, and let alone around the world, the most recent of which being the rains and flooding in Kentucky that have left so many people homeless and devastated, let alone without power. I am quite sure that any one of them would have gladly changed places with me and my short-lived inconvenience. Had I not been so occupied and preoccupied with trying to accomplish what I had intended for that night, I might have realized that I had been given a perfect opportunity to practice being in the moment, to practice accepting my situation as it was, to actually breathe, and to appreciate all that I possessed and all for which I could be grateful. I did not take advantage of the opportunity. In fact, I didn't even recognize it for the gift that it could have been, and I've been wondering about that ever since. Rather than sitting unhappily in the candlelit darkness, determined to finish something for which there was no immediate deadline, I might have stopped what I was doing, even moved with my candle into a different space, acknowledged the inconvenience, and yet used it as a time to breathe deeply, to feel the unusual darkness around me, to express gratitude for the comforts I still enjoyed, and to appreciate how our circumstances change as our environment does. In retrospect, it was a sobering reality check. It is so easy to suggest a path to myself and to others when we are comfortable and in seeming control of our surroundings. The hard moments catch us unaware, and with our defenses fully engaged in protection, distancing, and trying to impose order on an unexpected situation. That's why we call it a practice. The more we practice, hopefully, the more it becomes a natural and even instinctive response, even when caught by surprise, and unhappily so. We might continue to practice. This begs the question, of course, of why it seems easier or tends to be our default response, to curse the darkness rather than to light just one little candle, symbolically, that is. I did light candles, but I did not let them take me to an expansive place. I have no ready answers, but I continue to explore the question. And I welcome your thoughts if you have any or have had similar experiences. I don't want to conclude this reflection without bringing to your attention something far more positive and lovely that is part of our Jewish calendar this week. I did not even know that this very minor observance existed until just a couple of years ago. Tisha B'Av, or the 9th of Av, which I think we referenced last week, is fairly well known, even by those who are relatively unobservant. Tisha B'Av is the saddest day in the Jewish year, the day on which we mourn the destruction of both the first and second temples in ancient Jerusalem. By contrast, Tu B'Av is the minor observance I am referencing, or the 15th of Av. And you may remember the two from Tu B'Shvat, which we generally observe in January, February. Tu B'Shvat, which is the 15th day of the month of Shvat, as opposed to the 15th day of the month of Av, Tu B'Av. But the 15th day of the month of Shvat, which we designate as the New Year of the trees. But Tu B'Av occurs 6 days after Tisha B'Av, and it is a day of joy and a day of love, a kind of Valentine's Day and Sadie Hawkins Day combined. Originally, it served as a matchmaking day for unmarried women in the time of the Second Temple, which is before the fall of Jerusalem in 70 of this era. There is no way to know exactly how early Tu B'Av began. The first mention of this date is in the Mishnah, which was compiled and edited at the end of the 2nd century of this era. And in the Mishnah, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is quoted as saying the following. Excuse me. There were no better or happier days for the people of Israel than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur, since on these days, the daughters of Israel would go out dressed in white and dance in the vineyards. What were they saying? Young man, consider whom you choose to be your wife. In Israel, Tu B'Av is a day of love. While it is a regular weekday, while it is a regular work day, music and dance festivals are typically held to celebrate the day. Israelis give cards and flowers to their loved ones on Tu B'Av, and the date is popular for weddings. Sounds familiar. Beginning with Tu B'Av also, we start preparing ourselves spiritually for the month of Elul, the month that precedes and during which we are to prepare ourselves for the coming High Holy Days. We can even begin with Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, which is in the middle of the month of Av, prior to the beginning of Elul. But we can even begin with this day to wish each other the greeting. May you be inscribed and sealed for a good year. With these thoughts in mind, Tu B'Av, by the way, is on Thursday night and Friday, August 11th and 12th. With these thoughts about Tu B'Av, and that the opportunity to review, to renew, and to recalibrate our lives and our reactions is quickly approaching, although we do not need that excuse, helpful as it is. Let us resume our postures and our breathing in the goodness of this moment and the potential for love and loving in our lives, mysterious as that sometimes seems to be. Let us take our positions and breathe in. I find it helpful to begin with gratitude. And to breathe out unworthy thoughts, the things I'm not very proud of. We might breathe in a sense of loving beyond ourselves, beyond our closest people. A sense of loving that goes into that darkness. And that we can access, even if it is not specifically focused on another human being. There are those who say that God is love. We can say that as Jews, which would mean that the universe is somehow filled with love or the potential for love. I don't go there very often, but it is there. We can think about our practice of being present in this moment. Even when we have not prepared necessarily for the moment that arrives. I invite you to continue breathing, focusing just on the breath. But by way of conclusion, instruction for me, and inspiration for the days ahead, I share with you this poem by Billy Collins. It is entitled, "Fall to Your Knees and Thank God for your eyesight." I will start it again. Fall to your knees and thank God for your eyesight was my mother's usual response to my bouts of childhood whining. I can't find my other sneaker. Fall to your knees and thank God for your eyesight. There's no one to play with this early. Fall to your knees and thank God for your eyesight. My bicycle has only 3 gears. Fall to your knees and thank God for your eyesight. It's a line best delivered in a rural Irish accent. But my mother didn't have one of those, growing up on a farm in Ontario, Canada. Nor did she have much Canada in her voice. Fall to your knees and thank God for your eyesight, eh? Was not heard in the hallways of our house. Needless to say, I never fell for it, though it did create pauses in my trickle of complaints and maybe cleared some room in my room, strewn with toys, small tanks and smaller soldiers, a little space to think about God and eyesight. But not for long, of course. The demands of childhood being what they are, and the repeated words sometimes made me think twice before whimpering about a bruise on my knee, or foolishly, I would say that the line just, forgive me, I would say the line just when she did. The two of us chanting, "Fall to your knees," which is as far as I got before she appeared in the doorway and pinned me to the floor with that look. No surprise to know that nowadays, I say it every chance I get, to everyone under this roof, including the dog, and under my breath to people on the street. This one grousing about the price of eggs or gasoline, that one furious that the bus is late, especially when I realize those voices are mine, me peevish in the bedroom, me bitching about the rain, me and my broken shoelace, me in the sand trap, me forgetting to fall to my knees to thank her for giving me the eyes to see the world, to regard these words. I hope your days ahead, your week ahead, has opportunities for using the practice, and that you are aware of it and make use of it. And that there are many moments when, even if you do not literally fall to your knees and thank God for your eyesight, you do metaphorically, symbolically, with your full heart. I wish you a good week. I look forward to seeing you next time.